carp fishing is the driver of everything in my life. Life is getting busier and busier and busier as time goes on. That's forced my style of angling to change. Every single minute spent down that lake has to be maximised. When you're walking around them lakes at night like a ninja and no one else is there, it's just you, you can tap into that thing and you can become that different being, that animal that we've all got inside us, but we could probably live a lifetime without realising it.
Honestly, that's the bollocks. I'm just gonna get her home now, I think.
An angler with limited time who perhaps is turning up when the lake's busy can end up slotting in, and that can be a blessing in disguise.
What does a typical day look like for you then, Jake?
A typical day? I could be taking the little one to school first thing in the morning, editing all day, sleeping out somewhere, filming, a missus, 2 kids, a dog. 1 week is completely different to the next, you know, but I quite like it like that.
How does the fishing fit into that, mate?
It doesn't really fit. I've got to squeeze the fishing in, and it really is a squeeze. A night a week is a treat. There's no planning with it. It's total chaos, but I've really got to get as much of that night a week as I can get. So relentlessness plays a big part in my fishing sometimes. I might be baiting and walking and working out patrol routes, you know, daily sometimes, getting down that lake in the dead hours when the missus and the little ones are all asleep. I lose out on a lot of sleep. Obviously I can't work any less. I've got to pay the bills. I can't fish anymore, so I've got to find a way of getting to the lake. I've got to find a way of working out where they are, so when I do squeeze that 3-4 nights in a month, I've actually got half a chance. And obviously fishing demanding waters with low stocks most of the time, you know, you've really got to push it, and it ain't easy, but for me obviously the love of carp fishing is what keeps me going. You always hear of people saying, I ain't got enough time, you know, he does this amount of days or he does that many nights, so I can't get down there, I only got 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, whatever. And you know, I've come to the conclusion in the last few years that it's a bit of an excuse really. You hear a lot of excuses in carp fishing, and I'm guilty of it myself at times, but the reality is that they're carp in a lake, they're there to be caught, and you know, if you can do everything right, you'll catch them. I can think of plenty of carp I've caught on an overnight or a week or less. I wouldn't have said I would have caught many more if I was doing 2 or 3 nights maybe, you know, and it comes back down to, you know, going the extra mile with everything. Now I'm not always on it, but when I am on it, I do everything in my power to get down that lake at all times. You know, I feel like I am fishing when I'm down that lake. If I'm walking around, you know, in the dark or in the dead hours or, you know, whatever, when I've got the opportunity to do so, if I see a show, that can change my whole season. You know, I've had winters before where I've seen a show and it's changed the whole winter. I've had springs where, you know, I've managed to get the bait in with regularity, same with the autumn as well, and that's changed everything. I'll catch between sort of 10 and 20 carp a year. When you're doing 30 nights a year, if you're lucky, you're relying on maybe 1 or 2 hits of fish a year, and sometimes it don't happen. I've had seasons where I've caught 1 carp in the whole year, and that's hard. It really is hard when, you know, you've put all this graft in and you look back at it and you've got 1 fish. But, you know, for some reason I keep on going. I'm not 100% sure why. I think it's an obsessive nature and a little bit of an addiction really, because carp fishing is the driving force of much of my life. The other love in my life is art. Certainly the past few years I've really enjoyed my painting, my drawing, and really getting creative.
your beard on that mic.
Oh, does it keep scraping it?
It did just then because you had your head down.
What do you want to do? Do you want to look at some art?
Yeah.
Yeah? Or do you want to...
I want to know where the painting and that, where it started, where it came from, to be honest. Is it something you've always done? Or?
Yeah, that's a bit of a touchy subject, that. We'll see how much you can get out of me. Yeah, I've always drawn pictures, more like this sort of stuff, really. But the actual painting side of things, that come during the lockdown. Obviously, we were locked up at home, and a lot of us lost the plot during that time. I was close, big time, but yeah, I tried a few things, experimented with a few things. I become a very creative human being during that time, and I couldn't concentrate before. I could never sit down and do anything, and all of a sudden now I can sit there and paint for 10 hours at a time, no problem. Best lake in the world. I had no trouble painting that one. I was motivated big time. But this Stone Acres map I'm trying to do at the minute, I ripped it up yesterday, couldn't be arsed.
If you had to choose, mate, painting or fishing?
It's easy. Considering I'm painting a lake, where do you think my head's at? They're two massive passions of mine. I love them, absolutely love them both, but obviously carp fishing's number one.
Yeah, so I met Jake many years ago when he was, well, I'm quite a bit older than Jake, but yeah, he was a young lad on the local pits, and like most young lads, they're keen, they're eager, and can be a bit of a pain in the arse at times, but actually he was a good lad, and meeting him at such a young age, seeing such enthusiasm, it was great to see, and you spent a lot of time together chatting, and used to see him all the time. He's one of them sort of kids that's got ants in their pants. 1 minute he's here, then he's there, and then you see him over there up a tree, and he was always sort of, on his game really. And for the youngster back then, you could really see a good angler in him. And yeah, he always put the effort in, and he always caught them as well. He's always done well wherever he's gone. That's sort of in Jake's nature. Jake is sort of, I call him consistently inconsistent. But I think that's down to his sort of creative nature and the person who he is. He's a real talented guy. We've all seen his drawings and his maps and just his illustrations, and yeah, he's a real talented guy. And one thing I'd say about Jake is he's an all or nothing guy. He'll put 100% into something for a prolonged period of time, and I think that's a real good trait to have. Just going through life. I can even remember him doing the illustration for old Nash's book back in the day with the Demon Eye. He was a child then, and you could see the quality in him back then, and that shows in his angling as well. He does run around the place. He's keen, and he's still keen now, like he was back then. He's a good angler. He's responsive. He's proactive. He's just one of life's good guys, and people like that you want to keep them around you.
Family plays the biggest sort of part in my fishing time, in lessening my fishing time. Family is obviously the most important thing to me. I want to see them, I want to watch them growing up. I want them to have the best upbringing possible, and I want to enjoy time with my family. And obviously that means less fishing time, but I quite like it. I've got a double life. 1 minute I'm with the family and I've got the family time, I'm the family man, I'm the dad, I'm taking them out here, there and everywhere. And then all of a sudden, I tell the missus I'm off fishing and the double life starts. My missus doesn't even know where I'm going quite often. I get out that door and I go. I could literally be anywhere. And once I'm at that lake, quite often no one knows where I am. I don't tell people. And I could be the last man standing, I could be the last man on earth for all I know. As soon as it's dark at night, My missus might give me a little ring, but still, she don't care where I am. She knows I'm fishing somewhere. And it really is a double life, and I enjoy that aspect of it. You know, it gives me probably the ultimate freedom, a freedom that many people in this life may never experience with the constraints of work and family and whatever else. Whereas I get to shut that door, get in the van, get down the lake. It is literally just me and the lake. I love that.
Jake sort of epitomises everything that we wanted from the Unexplored series. True characters that are a little bit different to the norm. And Jake will be the first to admit that he is a little bit different to the norm, and I really like that. I like when people are themselves, they believe in what they believe in, and they're passionate about it, and they're passionate about the things that they love. And the things that he is passionate about is all a great success. You know, he's passionate for the artwork, which is unbelievable, amazing work. His fishing, limited time to do it, but still finds a way. The family life, you know, great success. He has 2 amazing children and a happy partner. Well, I think she's happy, I imagine she is. Yeah, just a really cool guy, and I love his outlook on life. It really makes you think about things, and I like that. I like different thoughts, and I don't think I've really seen Jake fish too much, but you can see by the carp that he's caught, from the places that he's caught them from, in the time that he's had to do it. Very competent angler, great guy. Love his passion and enthusiasm for carp and carp fishing, loves it. I could sit there on the phone for Jake for an hour just talking about fishing, and you can talk to him about your fishing and he gets excited about that, and I love that, and I think that's a really good trait for someone, and Jake's a good guy.
You know, where we are now, you've got a lake that doesn't really see much attention at all, or certainly when I fished it hard, it saw no attention, you know, it was just me. The great part about that was, it was me and the lake, it was me and the carp. Every carp caught was mine, you know. I know that I was the only one with hands on them fish. That really did feel like a privilege at the time. It's obviously hard to find that all the time, and quite often you're chasing something that almost doesn't exist. Probably 30 carp, 70 acres, otters, and you know, it really is a raw, windswept, flat pit, loads of out of bounds, no swims as such, you know, certainly nothing sort of cut. There's no one dictating the pace, it's quiet, you know, it's not like there's people baiting or anything like that dictating the method in which you've got to angle for these fish. And I love that, and when you've got a quiet lake and you can spend those times lapping and whatever else, you can end up using your instinct to catch yourself the carp. You know, over the years I've caught loads of carp. I could think of 5, 6 fish that I've caught literally by going on my gut.
Proper old one as well. Yeah.
Probably the most powerful tool that I have. More powerful than pre-baiting ever has been, or looking at a particular set of rules that many carp anglers use, whether it be wind or the pressure or the moon cycle or pre-baiting or whatever it might be. For me, you know, going with your gut, going with your intuition has caught me loads of carp. On here I was fishing the lake next door. I was convinced I knew where they was going to be on this lake. You know, I was a sort of an hour pack up, an hour barrow away, but I was just convinced. I knew where they were going to be. I don't know why, something inside me just said, Jake, you've got to get round to them shallows now. You know, this was early in the year as well, it weren't warm yet. And I got round there, within 15 minutes I had one that evaded me for many years in the net. It was just there. You know, I spent a long time trying to catch that fish, and as soon as I went with my gut, I caught it within 15 minutes of putting the rod out. When you fish busier lakes, you can't really do that. And unfortunately, I've learnt that the hard way this year. It's been a tough pill to swallow, but I started fishing a busier lake last year, where I'd sort of had a lot of success over the last couple of years, and everything sort of was going to plan. Everything sort of went swimmingly. You know, I had a great start on there. I caught 2 big ones straight away, and I started catching a few. A lot of luck involved, don't get me wrong, but I think that comes down to the intuition and the gut, and not necessarily using my head to tell me what to do.
Yeah. Oh.
Should we get it back?
Yeah, man.
It was a very fruitful summer. I think I'd had 14 fish in my first 11 nights on there, and that sort of capped off that season. I binned it off in the autumn. Mrs was pregnant and we had our second child. Got back fishing again in January and I was really fired up, but I think I was knackered, you know. I really was tired, and I think because of the success that I'd had and obviously other people had had on the lake, it ended up really busy. We've sort of gone through that period, January, February, March, April, and I've caught nothing. And there's people around me catching, you know, multiple fish, hits of fish. And I'm really, really struggling. It was getting to me. You know, I felt like I couldn't act upon my instincts. I knew where they were going to be, but I'd get there and there'd be someone, you know, hemmed in for 5, 6 nights. Sometimes, you know, one bloke was doing 7, 8, 9, sometimes 14 nights on the trot, and it was off big time. I really struggled to get my head around that. You know, a bad side of me come out really, and I wasn't fishing at my best. I probably weren't the best person at that time to be around while I was down the lake, and all I was focusing on was not being able to do what I wanted to do. And the reality is, doing overnighters in the spring isn't really conducive to catching carp. You know, generally you'll catch them in the day. I was reeling in and going to work, and these boys were having them, and yeah, it was frustrating me big time. We got to May and I still hadn't had a bite, and I really thought that these sort of 11 or 12 nights that I'd done between January and May, I'd catch something. I don't think I was even close, to be quite honest with you.
Got to happen.
I remember giving myself a little pep talk. I was like, right, Jake, come on, sort this out. You know, there's a biggin in there, and that's all you want. He ain't been caught yet. You can do it, you know, you've done it before. You've got to go and do your thing and do it the way that you do it. I remember getting home, stripping all my kit down to the bare bones. I didn't even bring a bucket with me. And, you know, literally just bringing a bag of boilies, couple of rods, no spod rod, no marker, nothing like that. And I got down the lake the next week, put all the gear on the barra. The push was, to be honest with you, it was easy. And I knew where they were going to be, I just had a feeling about it. For some reason, something had changed. I think where I'd sort of give myself a little chat and started to use that intuition again, I felt it was going to happen. I remember driving down there and I had this overwhelming feeling that something was going to happen, so much so that I actually drew a picture of my target on my hand, got to the lake and yeah, set the barrow up, pushed round. It was easy where I'd stripped all the kit down, got to the swim and there was someone in there. I was absolutely gutted. It was like being stabbed in the heart. I didn't even go and say hello to him, but as I'd walked out, he'd obviously heard that I was there and he'd come up to me. He said, "Oh, you're right, mate." I realised who it was. It was Jamie, sort of runs the place. Lovely bloke. And he's like, "Mate, if you want to go next door, feel free." And all spring I tried to stay away from the other anglers. And now I thought, you know what, I will go in next door because I know where I've needed to be. People have sort of hemmed me in at times and I'm going to go where I need to go. I was probably, you know, 70 or 80 yards away from him, but I just knew I needed to be there. There was a big set of pads and it was apparent that all the fish were there. I'd sprinkled a few 24 millers around, knowing that, you know, big carp food, and I put out a big hook bait, a real light lead and a big sharpened hook. It was so sharp that it would have burred if a crayfish had touched it. And in a lake littered with crays, you know, that's something that I wouldn't normally do, but my gut had told me to do so. Put out that sharpened hook and that light lead and you'll have the one you want. So 24 millers because there's a couple of stockies in there and I really didn't want to catch them stockies. And my mate Nath had come down.
There you go. Bit of B-roll for the next one. B-roll. It's got the head in it. I've got to get the head in it. It's a famous head.
Had a couple of cups of tea and whatnot. And he'd been lucky for me, Nath. Every time he sort of popped down, something good had happened. And like I said, I hadn't caught anything all year, but I was only after one, you know, one particular fish, a big long male. I had this picture saved on my screensaver for 6 months. All I spoke about was this fish, Goldie, 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 I'm going to catch Goldie, I'm going to catch Goldie, the moon, blah, blah, Goldie. Within 2 hours of Nath getting there, I'd only had the rods out 2.5 hours, something like that. The bobbin had hit the blank. I didn't even know what had happened. The alarm hadn't let out a bleep yet, and Nath had said, "That's your rod." I picked it up and it was like a steam train. You know, I felt instantly sick with how strong this fish was. But after probably 10 minutes or so of scrapping, you know, snagged me up and whatnot, I got it in the net, and straight away I knew which one it was.
Ready? How's that?
Yep.
Is it videoing?
Yep. That's much better with the light above it.
Alright, are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Cheers. Appreciate that. Yeah, no, mate, I've got him out of bed.
I was flat out. I've just been watching something on the iPad and then I must have nodded off.
And I knocked his rods on the way in.
Oh no.
I was just so buzzing, I knew what it was.
That fish taught me a lesson, a big lesson. It weren't worth the stress, to be quite honest with you. You know, you put so much in to try and catch these big carp, and sometimes the buzz ain't what you thought it might be. I slipped that fish back and it was relief. It weren't the buzz that I desired, you know. It was a bit of a downer, to be quite honest with you. I had a big carp come down afterwards, slipped it back and was glad it was over. And that ain't what it's all about, is it? All that sacrifice, you know, all the things that you could have done, all the things you could have, you know, the people you could have been with, the experiences in life you could have had, and, you know, your headspace is at that lake. You know, even when I'm at home painting or working or with the family or whatever, you know, the reality was they were all just distractions from my fishing. I can be that obsessed and that impulsive and just want to be down there. It just made me realise I've got to pick my waters wisely. I might be flicking on my phone and I see a fish that I like, or there might be one that I've sort of had noted for years or whatever else, and I've got to weigh it up. You know, is the lake too busy? What is the calibre of angler on there? You know, I really have got to be careful of where I choose to fish, because it can sort of ruin periods of your life, really. Fishing like this, I've done loads of it over the years. I've fished loads of low stock, big waters, not really many anglers about. I absolutely love it. You know, you can't beat the buzz, and I might only be fishing for a small family of fish. In them, there might be one big and there might not. Like, who knows? Like, they mean something else. It's not about what they mean in the carp world. It's about what they mean to you. You know, it's so much more personal. When I'm sort of grappling a 30-pound common, that to some people is just a 30-pound common, I know what that carp's been through. I know the amount of otter attacks it's dodged. I know that, you know, it's lived for decades in that lake with probably, you know, no human eyes on it, and it gives you a sense of something else. You know, you're not sort of, it is no longer competitive. It's pure. You know, it's angling at its purest form in my eyes, and for me, that's sort of what I want to experience now. And the reality is, I probably won't be sort of target fishing for much longer. I'm not a target angler. I'm not a big fish angler. You know, I'm an angler. It's as simple as that. And it's only the last few years that I've gone and targeted specific fish. Now, don't get me wrong, I've caught targets over the years, but that one-track mind is not me. It really isn't. And yeah, a bit of wild fishing with the sticks out, no one about. I could be the only man in the world, and that's what I look for now. Yeah? Thank God for that. Can I go look at the lake now? How was that? Was that all right?